Morning, church. So I've been thinking about where to start, and actually the best place for me to start is where 9 years ago, quite simply, Jesus reached out and gave me a chance to accept life and truth over death and total darkness. And there's only one type of way of explaining it like that, and it is the most black and white way. That was the option for me. I'd reached a crossroad in my life where it was inevitable that I was heading for total destruction. So let me give you a bit more context as how that happened to me and how I arrived at that point in my life. So as a young lad, I was brought up by very good parents, lovely people, loving, caring people. I had great opportunities. I went to a good school. I was around all the right people. I had great support around me and, of course, love in the family home. I say that because I know that people that have been through adversity, quite a common factor in their life is that they don't have all those things, but I did. I had all of those components. And the thing is that whatever it was in me, you can try and diagnose it. You can give all of these diagnostic terms to why I probably didn't do well at school, why I wasn't interested. I just didn't really grasp the academic approach to things properly, whereas some of my classmates did. I was more artistic and a bit of a dreamer as a young lad. And about the age of 10, 11, I'd started going down the wrong road. I never had any brothers or sisters. My parents were quite busy, but again, loving and caring, always there. But I, in my own world, had started to go down into more of a kind of a fantasy lifestyle and just started to sort of engage in young lads that were rebellious. I preferred that to school. So the kids that I started to be around at the age of maybe 11, 12, 13 were a bit older than me, probably about 3 or 4 years older than me. Tended to be cannabis smokers. By that time, I'd already started smoking cannabis and was smoking it on a daily basis. Then I got involved in the area that I was living in a gang of guys that were selling cannabis in the area. Now, you've got to remember that because I really wasn't academic, I didn't really grasp school, I hadn't developed any sort of identity. And so I embraced these guys and I felt encouraged by them. I felt there was an energy, like a charge from being around them. It was exciting and a little bit reckless, but exciting. So we were selling cannabis. I then started cultivating cannabis and was growing it. I was growing it in my mum and dad's house, up in the loft. And I was absolutely reckless and lawless by this time. Around the age of 14, I got expelled from that good school I was on about. And in the end, for me, it was like, okay, all right. So I haven't done well at school. I never grasped it. But you know what? I have found some sort of alternative meaning in my life. And that is this life of hedonistic, whimsical desires and drug use. So after my period of smoking cannabis and selling cannabis, of course I had to go up the ladder and cocaine came along. And with myself and this group of guys that I was talking about, we started selling cocaine as well. And I started using cocaine. Again, around the age of 15, and I loved it. I embraced it fully. It was my go-to drug, and it made me quite paranoid. And I started to make some sort of reckless decisions. And we were selling drugs in the area. Obviously, you had to be careful. And I started to become a little bit unhinged. And my pals around me were starting to sort of have discussions around themselves about, Dan, look, he's not making right decisions here. You know, you could get nicked if you're with him and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, there was someone that I knew at the time that was a heroin user. And it was just second nature to me. By that point, I wanted to try it. So when it came my way, I knew what this drug was, and I smoked it. And I just felt this huge cloud blanket come over me. And that was my way out of any frustrations, lack of identity, rejection by that time that I was feeling. By the age of 18, I was a full-blown heroin addict and crack user. And I had detached myself from all of these lads that I'd mentioned and had embraced a new group of people in my area. And these were the crack using, heroin using injectors in the area. And they were funding their habit by committing crime in the street. And so I naturally had to learn how to do that as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to fund my habit. So I started committing crime. I asked them to show me the ropes, show me how to earn money. And they did. They thought, well, here's this young 16-year-old, 18-year-old lad that wants to learn how to earn money. So, of course, they willingly showed me, and I just progressed into my addiction. At the age of about 20, I remember having a conversation with a pal of mine at the time about prison. And he said to me, "What, you never been in Nick before?" I said, "No." But I knew that I was going there. So I remember saying to him, "Look, can you prep me for my first period of custody? Because it's coming my way." I knew it. I was aiming for it. I embraced all of the catastrophe that was inevitable anyway. And he said, "Well, yeah, okay, well, you're going to go." So started prepping me. I went into jail about the age of 21 or 22. Served a period of remand time. I went through the most horrendous withdrawal symptoms in the prison. They put me in a hospital wing. I was in trouble. I really, really was quite bad. I was there for 11 days, and then I got released from court. And I remember walking out of the jail at the time thinking, I never want to go back to prison again. That was awful. But anyway, fast forward, I did. I ended up serving many years in prison, in and out of prison, all my life. In and out of severe drug addiction, heroin addiction. I'd started to deteriorate really, really badly in my 30s. I was diagnosed with hepatitis C. I had hugely ulcerated legs from injecting. I was about 8 stone. I had damaged the relationship in my family between my mum, my dad. I had just been hugely destructive in my area and stolen from many different people, from many different companies. And I was, by the age of 38, a totally broken man. I was in hospital with septicemia, and it was touch and go at that point. And I knew I could sense the end of my life was becoming more and more tangible and close. And I remember my mum saying to me, "You know, you're going to die, you know that, don't you?" And of course I knew that, but there was some sort of, by that point, because I was so bad, so broken in my addiction, there was something quite sort of, there was a freedom that I felt in it. I thought, yeah, I know I'm going to die. Maybe sort of freedom in a way, because I was trapped so badly in that cycle of addiction. And by that point, my mum heard a friend who went to church, and a fella came there to do a presentation. And this gentleman worked for a wonderful Christian rehab called Teen Challenge. And so my mum said to me, "Daniel, you've got to give this guy a chance. Just talk to him." I said, "I'm not interested. It's not going to work. Another Christian. I'm a prayer target. Every Christian wants to pray for me. Please, just leave me alone. Let me just do what I'm doing." My mum said, "Well, you've got to at least listen to what he's saying. He's a tough guy. He's been through the same things that you've been through." And I said, "Okay." So you know what? I thought, "Well, Mum, I'm going to do you a favour. Nothing to do with me. This is for you." So I met with this gentleman, and I mean, the rest is actually just almost bizarre. But he shared his testimony about how Jesus had touched his life in a prison cell. And he wasn't my sort of maladapted archetypal version of a Christian. He was talking to me in a language that I understood, and it cut me open. It touched my heart. He said to me, "Look at what you're doing." He said, "Jesus can reach out to you the same way that he did to me. Look at what you're doing." He said to me, "Look at your mum." I looked at my mum and I started thinking about what he was saying to me, and thought, well, maybe it is just this urban myth that I'm living, that I'm destined for destruction. Maybe I am in a sort of deception. Maybe I've just embraced this kind of drug-addicted criminal ego, and it isn't true, it isn't real. And I had a sense that that was the case. So he said, "Let me help you." He said, "You can do great things. I can see it. You're going to go on to do great things." I thought he was mad. I thought he was absolutely crazy, but I sort of believed him. And I believed that what he was saying to me resonated truthfully, that he had really had a touch from Jesus, because I could see the sort of residual scars of his life. I could see the healing in his life. And it rung true with me. So he said, "I'm going to get you into Teen Challenge Rehab." And I said, "Yes, please do." Well, I'm going to fast forward now into some of the amazing healing that Jesus has done in my life. At that point, I was taken over. It was of no real will of my own. I was totally broken. I was on crutches. I was tiny, skinny, broken man, desperate for an injection every 3 or 4 hours. And I just thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I went up to Teen Challenge. In the end, he picked me up. And the manager there started interviewing me. And I just thought, there's no way these people are going to actually accept me into the rehab, because they'll do a risk assessment on me just with their eyes and think, forget it, this geezer's he's not going to make it. But the manager there saw something, and again, thanks to God, because here you have a believer in something that is not natural, a belief that leaves all options open for Jesus to intervene. And because this man had faith, he said, actually, against all odds, I am going to give you a chance here. Because by any normal risk assessment standards, by that time I was heavily addicted to benzodiazepines. I was on a large amount of methadone. I was using about 100, 200 pounds worth of crack and heroin every day, injecting. And so to go through a withdrawal on that amount of medication, that's a pretty risky thing to do. But against all odds, they brought me in. No detox, nothing like that. They just sat me on the bed and started praying for me. I thought, is this actually going to work here? I thought, my goodness, you're just going to pray for me and that's it? But yeah. somehow I knew that it was right. 3 weeks in, and I was in horrendous withdrawal. I tell you, physically, mentally, and emotionally, I was absolutely broken. I was hallucinating. I could not stand up. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just didn't even know what to do with myself. I was all over the place. And so I thought, one night I was on my bed and I thought, I'm going to do what, of course, I always do, and that's escape from this. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't carry me. And I started to realise that actually there's something quite special about this moment, because against all of my strength and will and emotion, I couldn't get up to move my legs, to get out. And I remember thinking in that moment, maybe there's something I need to attend to here and stay with this. And sort of I remember feeling like I'd cut part of myself off in that decision and let it go. At that time, I could not stand up. I could not get into a shower. And there was one of the staff members there, tough guy, who you could tell had a rugged life, but had become a Christian. And he said, get yourself ready for the shower. You might not be able to stand up, he said, but I am going to hold you up in the shower. And I remember having that shower. I wasn't even concentrating on the shower. I was thinking, who is this man to just selflessly do that? Just what has happened in his life to just give of himself so freely and say, we are going to get you sorted out. And I wanted to find out more and more. I started asking questions about Jesus. I started reading scripture. And I think whereas some make an absolutely defined commitment, I think I probably already had my commitment by then. And I continued to make that commitment and to ask, what does it mean? What does it actually mean to develop? I started to heal in the end. I started to build physically, mentally, and emotionally. Just as I was reading scripture, Jesus continually revealed himself to me in my life. And so I started asking, well, what does it mean to be a believer? What does it mean to be a Christian man who wants to be of service to the community? Because in Teen Challenge, that's what they taught you, service. They taught me how to fold up the other residents' clothes. They taught me how to clean in all the mindless cleaning, parts of the building. I thought, why do you want me to clean here? This doesn't need it. But it was about, accountability and service to the community. And so they really toughened me up. They strengthened me. And God put all the right mentors and support in place. I then was treated for my hepatitis C. The treatment was successful and I got healed, and I just thank God for that. That is no longer a problem for me. Now, I was 15 years active hepatitis C. My liver was quite badly cirrhotic at that point, or borderline cirrhotic, and I was totally fatigued. I couldn't think straight. Everything was blurry to me. But then, like I say, I started to heal physically, literally physically, and emotionally and mentally. So to come back to the fella who reached out to me through my mum, he said to me, you're going to go on to do some things, and I can see you and me working together. I just thought, again, it's nutter, not real. But he said, no, you are. He said, come and work with me. I'll get you trained up. You can start mentoring at, it's E-Gangs at the time. which was a youth crime intervention project, mentoring gang members. By this time, I'd been on the Teen Challenge programme for about a year, and I was still quite unsteady on my feet. I, at that point, had 23 years of crack and heroin addiction, still trying to find out who am I as a man. What do you really want from me, God? I know that you've given me purpose, but now what to do with it? I don't have any education. I didn't have any understanding of systems and how things work in society. I didn't grasp it all. I needed support with that. And so through E-Gangs and through Paul Days, my mentor there, he said, look, we'll get you started. And he said, and what I want you to do is put 10% of the efforts you put into buying drugs, living a criminal life, put 10% of that effort into your own development and to learning. He said, because you are very capable and you'll be able to do it. And I believed him then. I thought, okay, well, I must grasp this. I prayed about it. And God just revealed it to me that actually I am able to do things that I otherwise thought that I wouldn't be able to do. And so I started mentoring. I started training. And Paul and Teen Challenge then paid for me to do some additional training courses like cognitive behavioural therapy. I did health and social care. And I started thinking, okay, well, Lord, what do you want from me? Well, surely it makes sense for me to use some of my adversity in service to others that are maybe in a dark place in their life. And I prayed about that as I was still learning and developing myself. And that was the direction that Jesus started to take me down. So I'm going to go forward a little bit. That was 9 years ago I was in Teen Challenge. And to the day, prayerfully, and whilst I experienced a lot of post-traumatic stress and sort of delusions of my past, God has slowly but surely healed me to the point where I now manage a team of opiate recovery coordinators at a well-known drug and alcohol service. And God has done amazing things in my life where He has used all of the negative experiences I had, all of the adversity, all of the drug addiction, all of the shame, the guilt, the rejection, the trauma. He's used that to... Basically, it wasn't for me. My transformation is for others. For me to actually go into the world and support others that are in darkness. And so that's the field that I'm in now. I manage and support this team of opiate recovery coordinators, and we work with clients in the East End that are caught up in serious drug addiction, just the same way, and I'd always prayed for that to happen. My prayer through Teen Challenge was that, well, maybe God, you would have me working with some of the most damaged, most affected drug users around. In terms of my family, what God has done is just quite amazing. He's rekindled relationships between my mum, my dad, myself. I've had a late chance to really be a son to my mum and dad, and not just some reckless hedonist, but to really be a son to them and to, receive from them parental wisdom and, inquire about who I was to them, because I didn't know myself for so long. And Jesus has also, in such a wonderful way, through Teen Challenge, introduced me to my beautiful wife, who sits with me now, who has supported me and encouraged me and strengthened me and of course corrected me as well, and who has really supported in prayer to build me up. I have a wonderful daughter, the most beautiful person, great character, they've both taught me so much about myself. And so today, I'm on a very, very blessed journey. I shouldn't be here. By normal standards, I really should have been dead. But Jesus reached out, has given me an amazing transformation and a proper bright hope for the future.